And this is something, if you watch closely, will separate me from many other Republicans. The other Republicans will criticize the president and Hillary Clinton for their foreign policy, but they would have just done the same thing just 10 times over. Every one of the ones who will criticize me wanted troops on the ground, our troops on the ground in Libya. I think it was a mistake to be in Libya. We are less safe. Jihadists swim in our swimming pool now. It's a disaster. We should have never been there.
All right, folks, that's one way that Rand Paul, many say, has distinguished himself from his other Republican, I guess, possible candidates and current candidates. But there are other ways, and we'll hear that from our next guest, former U.S. Congressman, former quarterback at the University of Oklahoma, Mr. J.C. Watts. Hello, sir.
Steve, how in the world are you?
It's been too long, and I'm great. I know you're doing well, and I know that you were there for the announcement of Senator Rand Paul. And how did you come to be one of his earliest supporters?
Well, Steve, I've gotten to know the senator over the last three and a half years, and I think he has an uncanny ability, I think, to listen. And I've been impressed with that. I've been looking for a Republican to pick up the mantle of Jack Kemp for some time, and I think Senator Paul has done some things and has said some things, and I think has challenged us to think beyond the talking points, and he's not been afraid of getting voted off the island, and I think we need to have an honest discussion about foreign policy. We need to have an honest discussion about civil liberties, and I think he's challenged us to do that. So the time that I've had his ear, I've been impressed that he's willing to listen. He's been willing to, go into Ferguson and Atlanta and Detroit and Chicago and listen and learn and try to have, I think he wants to do the right thing, and he wants to do the right perspective, and I felt that doing that, he deserved my support, whatever that may mean.
Well, I think one of the things that is absolutely true about him is he has reached out to non-traditional Republican supporters. He's gone to these cities that you've talked about, and I'm sure he's going to do much more of it. And I've been, for years, there have been people like me who are saying that the African-American community should be a conservative voting and Republican voting bloc. The Hispanic community should be the same. For whatever reason, they're not, and you need that kind of outreach. Is this something that you see yourself also helping him with as far as the African-American community?
Well, Steve, I've surely advised him on some of those things, but let me tell you why I think that there's a disconnect with Republicans/conservatives and the black community. It's not the social issues that keeps black people from voting with conservatives or with Republicans. It's the justice issues. And, when you look at in Scripture, Psalms 89 verse 14 says, "You shall build your throne upon justice and righteousness." Righteousness, we talk about that, but we leave out the justice part. And in fairness, the black community often talks about justice but leaves out the righteousness part. So one without the other is incomplete. But here about, Steve, like in the last 2 months, you've had the black Presbyterian churches, they left the Presbyterian faith because of the marriage issue. So it's not life or marriage or the social issues those things we would define as social issues. It's not those issues that keeps the black community in a 40-50% clip from voting Republican. It's those issues that they feel like we don't pay attention to on the justice.
Well, give me an example, Congressman. Give me an example of the justice issue.
Well, Steve, I don't. And I want to be careful here because my dad was a police officer, and by no means do I mean to throw police officers under the bus, because my dad was a police officer. I've got a son-in-law that's a police officer. But while I don't believe police officers are always wrong, I don't believe they're always right. And I think we have to take a closer look at those things. And this situation down in Charleston, South Carolina, I had that young man not had that video, Republicans would put their stakes in the ground on the side of the police officers, and Democrats would put their stakes in the ground on the side of the victim. And I think there needs to be a deeper discussion, and I think Senator Paul has encouraged that, a deeper discussion about how we do law enforcement, or what needs to be tweaked in terms of the law enforcement community. And it's not just, and I don't just say that in terms of the black community. I think there's obviously, white victims and red and yellow and brown victims out there as well. And when we have, things like that happen, I think we have to get beyond that 30,000-foot level and get down to a 300-foot level and have an honest discussion about what should or shouldn't be tweaked.
No, that's very interesting. What do you think, how easy, whoever the nominee is going to be, how easy or hard is it going to be to run against Hillary?
Well, Steve, in my opinion, I think she's a worthy adversary. When you put any candidate out there that would have the support of the mainstream press, when you put any candidate out there that they're going to have a double standard working in their favor, it's going to be challenging. But I do think that President Obama, my uncle and dad used to say to me that George Wallace was one of the best things that ever happened to the black community,
right,
simply because he made the black community organize and pull together.
And that's what Hillary might do to the Republicans.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't want to cut you off, but it's my fault. I should have gone to this right away after the justice issue. What do you think of Tim Tebow getting another shot with the Eagles? And of course, you were a former quarterback at University of Oklahoma.
Hey, more power to Tim Tebow. I think, I like Tim. I think he's a good guy, and you always pull for the good guys. But, I do think he has some challenges. But, hey, that's the American way. Get your shot, go out, lay it all on the line, give it the best that you possibly can, and let the chips fall where they may. And I think that's Tim Tebow's approach to it.
All right, Congressman, you come back soon, okay?
Steve, look forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Congressman J.C.
Okay.
Watts, former congressman from the great state of Oklahoma. When we come back, more of The Big Show. Don't you go away.